One, Africa is the richest continent on earth by far.
Hello?
No, yes. no continent comes even close. One. Two, we are all Africans because life began in Africa. Life as we know it, I can tell you, my brother, right now, you do your DNA testing, I can tell you a good 50% of you is African. We are all Africans. And thirdly...
Proud to be.
Proud. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then thirdly, I want everybody to know about the wonderful news coming out of Africa. Remember we were talking about the Berlin Conference, how we were designed to fail through these little countries we were divided up? Well, guess what? Game is over. April this year, we saw our leaders come together and signing the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Rightful place because right now we vacated that place and others have been taking that place. Game is up. Africa must take its rightful place. As one continent, one heart, one voice.
We all know what happened in 1884, that a group of European men gathered in Berlin, not to discuss trade or diplomacy, but to divide Africa like a piece of cake. No Africans were invited. You can imagine that. No voices were heard, and yet the secret meeting changed the course of our continent forever, and this has still affected Africa until today. Today, Africa is Marwa brings you the voice that they tried to silence through Dr. Arikana Chihombori-Quao, as she actually reveals the raw truth about the Berlin Conference and its toxic legacy that continues to haunt Africa to this day. But anyway, before we begin, have you subscribed to Africa is Marwa? I mean, if you haven't, what are you still waiting for? Aren't you African? Take 3 seconds of this video to hit on that subscribe button, and also don't forget to click on that bell so that you never miss the powerful content like this, you know, the Pan-African voices that we continue to post. And finally, Africa is Marwa has a membership. So this is my special invitation to you who believe in what we are doing to support our bold Pan-African storytelling and access our exclusive content. Please take your time to look at the membership criteria that we have and join. Let's get the video going.
Madam Ambassador, so good to sit with you today.
Thank you for having me.
We'll talk about Africa. And when you look at Africa today, what do you see?
I see an amazing continent. A continent that is endowed with everything and anything the world could ever need. I see a continent that is full of hope, a continent that has some of the most incredible, resilient people I've ever met. When you really honestly look at what Africa and its people have been through, most other ethnic groups would be extinct by now. But we are resilient. We are human beings who are just so committed to survive against all odds. But nonetheless, we are waking up. We're also a continent that's been sleeping. Let me say we were put to sleep. We were awake, and then we were put to sleep. Now it's time that we wake up back to our greatness again.
What is the damage that has been sustained because of colonial rule and apartheid?
Let's go back to, I guess when you look at colonialism and when it was finally just organized in a way that we would then have the Africa that we have today. For Africa, I'll take it back to the Berlin Conference. That was held from November of 1884 to February of 1885. As you know, most people don't realize that the European nations were just haphazardly going into Africa and just stealing from the local people, and pretty soon they started stealing. The British would steal from the French, and the French would steal from the Spaniards, and pretty soon they were fighting each other. So the then Chancellor of Germany, Bismarck, in his efforts to prevent the European war on the African soil, he reached out to his sidekick, King Leopold of Belgium. And at that time, as you know, Belgium, King Leopold was wreaking havoc in the Congo. People are not aware that over 75% of the Congolese population was killed by Leopold. He actually claimed Congo was his own personal country. He owned it individually, not as Belgium. So he called Leopold and said, hey, we got a problem here. Can we come together and see if we can organize the manner in which we're going to loot from these people? So that's really how Berlin Conference was called together. So they brought all the countries that were making this mad rush into Africa so they could organize how they were looting the continent. So really, the Berlin Conference was not called for in order to make Africa better, but rather to see to it that they organize themselves so they can effectively exploit the Africans and also make sure that the continent and its people are forever defeated and dominated.
Does the looting go on today?
Oh, yes. The looting continues, but it has put on different clothes. Now, there's something else they did during the Berlin Conference. Because remember, after they had traveled around the continent, found some of the most powerful kingdoms with well-established educational and religious systems. I mean, the African people are just resilient. When you get to know the Africans, you understand the African spirit. And they knew that if they continued the same way they were going, they would never defeat the Africans. So they set in place a system of colonization and making the Africans believe that everything that was African was bad and everything that was European, particularly British and English, was better. So the seed of divide and conquer was also sown during the Berlin Conference. And they knew, just give it a generation or less, these people, not only are they going to be so divided, because they chopped us up into these small economies that really could never survive on their own. You take a country like Equatorial Guinea, Central African Republic, Malawi, Rwanda, Burundi, you know, they're economies that even if they struggle and begin to do better on their own, if the master decides you're becoming too smart, they're very easy to destabilize.
Wow.
And that's exactly what has been going on in our Africa. So Berlin Conference, people don't realize it was designed to see to it that the Africans are forever defeated. So for those who turn around and say, but Ambassador, don't talk about the Berlin Conference, it was a long time ago. And I'll say, as long as we have a country called Malawi, a country called Zimbabwe, a country called Central African Republic, all the African countries really for that matter, Berlin Conference is alive and well. Because that which they set out to do 123, 24 years ago, it's still in place. Nothing has changed. So how can they say Berlin Conference is a thing of history, don't talk about it? No, what's really sad and what should disgust the world is to say this policy was put in place 123 years ago and it is still in place and nothing has changed. But what's really worse is when you look at what France did to the Francophone countries in 1958, when they were leaving, quote unquote, leaving the continent. They gave the Francophone countries two choices. You can be independent with some affiliations to France, or you can be independent with no affiliations to France. Well, Guinea and Mali said, we are done with you, France, goodbye, leave us alone. That's how we had the first ever known union of any African states. They went into those two countries, took everything that they thought they had brought to them. History tells us they even took the last cup, teaspoon, chair, and proceeded to pour concrete into the sewage pipes, completely devastating the two economies, simply because they refused to be affiliated to France. But what they, and also the Sékou Touré, then president of Guinea at that time, he looked at the pact that France was making the Francophone countries sign. It was called the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization. He refused to sign it.
How many countries in Africa?
Now we are sitting at 14 Francophone countries that are still held on to this pact.
So in 50-some countries in Africa altogether, were they all colonized?
Yes.
By different
countries?
Different countries.
The majority of the countries went to France,
yes,
Britain. We have Portuguese, we have Spanish, and those are the main ones.
You used the word looting before.
Yes.
The looting continues to this day?
To this day, it continues, but it has a different name.
So tell me what the name is.
Well, the exploitation of Africa continues. Again, let me go back to the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization, which is the biggest one. The Francophone countries were told you, because we brought you the idea that you can sit at a table and eat with a fork and knife, we brought you tea, we built some roads and told you about going to school, we're going to call that colonial debt. So there's a fee for that, and you need to pay for it. They were also told that you must speak French as your official language, and it must be your language of instruction in schools, and we will be the one to design your educational system. And then also, your money. 85% of your bank reserves, you will keep them, you'll deposit them with the French bank, and we will take that money and invest it in the French stock market, but we don't have to tell you what the returns are on your money. So collectively, all the Francophone countries that signed that pact, their funds, the 85% of their bank reserves, are invested under French name.
Got to hold that because we're getting behind on a little break. We are talking with the ambassador who represents the African Union here in the United States. And Her Excellency is giving us an amazing look inside Africa back then and today. Sit tight. This is America and the world. Madam Ambassador, about 50 countries, a little bit more, 50 countries?
55.
55. Population of Africa?
1.27 billion.
1.27 billion people. Give me a couple of success stories.
Success stories, we are having increased rates of literacy. We have many African countries that are increasing their GDPs. 6 of the top 10 fastest growing economies in the world are in Africa. So there's a lot of good news coming out of Africa. But again, because of this same strategy of branding Africa as a diseased and dying continent where people are constantly at war with each other, people are not seeing the good news out of Africa.
So what are the myths? What are the myths about Africa? Just name 3 things that we should get in our minds that when Africa is in the conversation or Africa is in the news, that we should be thinking about. 3 myths.
1, Africa is the richest continent on earth by far.
Hello?
Yes. No continent comes even close. 1. 2, we are all Africans because life began in Africa. Life as we know it, I can tell you, my brother, right now, you do your DNA testing, I can tell you a good 50% of you is African. We are all Africans. And thirdly...
Proud to be.
Proud. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then thirdly, I want everybody to know about the wonderful news coming out of Africa. Remember we were talking about the Berlin Conference, how we were designed to fail through these little countries we were divided up? Well, guess what? Game is over. April this year, we saw our leaders come together and signing the African Continental Free Trade Agreement.
Yes.
Yes, so we have 50 countries that have already signed, and we're going through the process of ratifications. We only need 22 of the 50 to ratify. Already we have 10 ratifications deposited with the African Union.
So free trade agreement in Africa.
In Africa.
For African countries.
We're going to negotiate as one bloc. We have made a commitment as Africans that the only way we can survive, which is what our Pan-African fathers wanted, to speak with one voice, one continent, one voice. And we're finally getting there. We're finally beginning to bury the Berlin Conference.
Okay, African Union. What is it? What is it all about?
African Union. Remember when our Pan-African leaders met in 1964 and created OAU? It was during that wonderful Organization of African Unity. That's when Kwame Nkrumah proclaimed Africa was for the Africans and African Union now. 55 years later, we are yet to attain that perfect African Union. But that's okay. We are getting there. He also proclaimed you were not African because you were born in Africa, but rather you were African because Africa is born in you. Now, this is the most beautiful part. Yes.
Nice.
As I've lived in this country, I've met many people who may never have been born in Africa or never have even set foot in Africa, but they have Africa born in them. So I see a lot of brothers and sisters who may not look like me, but they're definitely Africans. Since 1964, after the creation of the OAU, the whole purpose of the OAU was to rebuild the Africa and destroy the boundaries that were imposed upon us during the Berlin Conference. It's been difficult because remember that seed of divide and conquer, it's deep among us. Trying to get us to work together. We are so divided among tribal lines, religious lines, even now racial lines and national lines. So we are very divided people, but getting us to realize that we are suffering from the legacy of colonialism is work in progress. We must keep preaching. People must have a serious conversation with the image in the mirror because the healing starts here.
How about your job, your mission?
My mission, I have sent here by the 55 African heads of states and my chairman, Musa Faki Mahamat, 2 major mandates: to promote Africa in the Americas and also to strengthen the bridges between Africa and the Americas and to bring the children of the diaspora back home.
There are challenges, of course.
Yes, there are.
Poverty still.
Yes, very much so.
Conflict, literacy, but education moving along. Health, you're a physician.
Serious.
You're a physician.
That is a serious problem. People are not aware. If all the continental African doctors were to return home today, we're only going to meet about 20% of the need. Africa needs at least 1.2 million doctors today. So as you can imagine, no amount of money put into healthcare in sub-Saharan Africa is going to deliver the desired results because the capacity is simply not there. There are more African doctors, Ghanaian African doctors, in New York City alone than in the whole country. The same is true with Nigeria and many other countries. The same is true with education and all other sectors. The capacity that Africa needs to take its rightful place on the world stage is in the diaspora. And this is because of the brain drain. And the brain drain goes back to starting with the ones that came across the Atlantic in shackles, followed by the ones who came across the Atlantic in search of greener pastures. The result is the only ingredient that is missing for Africa to move forward are its children. So that is why the African heads of states and the African Union Commission are committed to see to it that we repatriate, we reverse the brain drain.
This is a heavy-duty sentence that I've picked up in some of your interviews, past interviews. It's not easy being a black person on earth.
It is not.
Can you talk about that, please?
In my own humble opinion, I like to say the most endangered species on earth is the black man, followed by the black woman right above them. It doesn't matter. You just have to be. You simply just have to be. I can tell you one experience I had not even long ago. My daughter got married, and it was in Maine. And after the wedding, the wedding party wanted to go to a nightclub. Now, the only black people were my son, my daughter, and another guest, another young black girl. Anyway, and the rest, she married a white guy, so the wedding party was his friends from high school and college. Well, the young kids were already drunk. So when they were trying to get into the nightclub, there were about 15 of them, and the police were called. But my daughter heard them say, and my son is very tall. And so there's a tall black guy and a young lady in a pink dress. They were the only 2 black people. And when the police came, they wanted to talk to those 2. But the question is, they're all here. So fortunately, one of the brides maid, she's a newly graduated Harvard lawyer, and she walked right up to the police and say, "I want you to know I'm a Harvard lawyer. I have you. I'm recording you. Go right ahead." So the police completely changed their demeanor.
Sure.
But what was called in were the 2 black people.
Sure.
They were not even drunk. It's the rest of the party that was drunk. But so you don't have to do anything. Sometimes you just have to be.
Yeah.
Just be yourself and you're in trouble. But really what gets me mad is, even on the continent, we get abused on our own land simply because of the color of our skin. So it's really something that I would like for people to stop and think about. When are we going to be free as black people?
I want to insert one other thought into the conversation. And what we're talking about now is very important. You've been practicing medicine in Tennessee for 25 years?
Yes.
Yep. I read something which said, talking about African Americans and Africans in the United States, they're saying that it is very difficult and it is a daily task for a black person to fit into white society.
Absolutely. But the question is, here's the way I look at it. Why should we even try to fit into anything? This is our world. I don't need to try to fit in anything. I just want to get along with you.
Yeah.
I don't need to try to fit in anything.
Right.
And if you don't want to get along with me, fine, have it your way.
Right.
We need to, the reason we feel like we should fit in is because we are coming into this conversation from a level of inferiority.
Yeah.
Why do we feel inferior?
And a superiority on the part of the white.
Thank you. So we're coming in feeling inferior, they're coming in feeling superior. There is no conversation between white and black.
Ooh.
That needs to be addressed, and we must pull this bull by the horns. As black people, we need to move up and realize that we're just as good as anybody else, and the white people need to get off their high horses and come down. So we can have a real meaningful conversation, much needed conversation. And that's part of why I am here, because I realize there's so much misunderstanding between Africans do not understand the Americans. The Americans do not understand the Africans. It gets in the way of trade. If you look at AGOA implementation, that simple legislation that is meant to help African businesses, we're not benefiting from it, because when the African businesses hear about doing business in America, America is so hard. No, honey, it may be a lot of papers, but all you gotta do is cross every T and dot every I, one page at a time, and you'll get it done. But because it's America, there's a wall that falls, and it's difficult.
You're representing the African Union in the United States.
Correct.
On a scale of 0 to 10, what's the relationship between Africa and the United States?
I can honestly tell you right now, and I'm preaching whenever I have an audience to preach, America is still the most preferred trading partner by Africa. But my biggest fear right now, I see America slowly losing its place. I often say,
Its place where?
in Africa, in terms of being preferred. Because America is still,
On a scale of 0 to 10.
on a scale of 0 to 10, America is still number one.
Well, that's the desire, but how would you say the relationship is between the two countries? Number one?
It's still good. That's what I'm saying. So caution is to say, America, in order for you to maintain your position, this game is a new game. You need to call for timeout. You need to re-strategize.
President Trump is a businessman.
Yes.
How do you sell a businessman on the importance of Africa?
Well, I think President Trump is a businessman who likes to negotiate, and he wants to always end up with the upper hand, and I don't blame him. That's why Americans appointed him. He is there to come out with the best deal for America, period. And he wants to get that deal by any means necessary. We, the Africans, must also stand up and realize that if you're going to negotiate with America, you better be on your P's and Q's. You must have all your antennas up and be ready to fight, because the Americans are not going to come in and let you just beat up on them. But at the same time, let me look at it this way as well. Going back to the Berlin Conference, we are already at a disadvantage. How do you take Togo and put Togo in the same boxing ring with the United States? You're taking a heavyweight fighter and putting them in the same ring with not even a lightweight fighter, but a wannabe boxer. This is the position that African countries are finding themselves in. They are not heavyweights. These are little boys who are constantly being put in the same heavyweight boxing ring with the big boys. Now, when we come together as a continent, as Africa, we are a heavyweight. We belong in the same boxing ring with the United States, with China, with India, with Europe.
Rightful place? Going for the rightful place.
Rightful place, because right now we vacated that place and others have been taking that place. Game is up. Africa must take its rightful place as one continent, one heart, one voice.
Will we see a new Africa?
It's going to happen. Absolutely. It's on the way. I was talking to my chairman just last week. He told me January we'll have all the ratifications we need, and the African Continental Free Trade Agreement is moving, is steaming right ahead. And the children of Africa are going to speak with one voice. And our Pan-African fathers from 1964, wherever they are in their graves, they are doing flips because finally Africa is going to be whole again.
So you have hope?
Very much so. That's all we got.
What are we missing?
The understanding and appreciation of Africa and its people.
What's the biggest lesson you've learned in your life?
The biggest lesson I've learned in my life is that love conquers all. And that if we can just love each other and accept each other as humanity, regardless of the color of your skin, because this really is, the color of your skin is nothing. At the end of the day, we are one. So if we can just learn to love and respect and appreciate each other, this world is an amazing place.
So when we look at the news, television, or hear it on radio, or pick up a newspaper, one thought you want us to take. One thought.
Africa is an amazing continent. And everything that you have heard, read, negative about Africa, it is all false. Take another look at Africa. Clean eye.
Take another look at Africa with a clean eye.
Absolutely.
Lovely. Madam Ambassador, thank you so much for the education.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for tuning up to the end. You've actually heard from Dr. Arikana Chihombori on how the chains of colonialism actually were far-fetched and not just physical, but they were mental, economic, and generational. And as we speak today, Africa still suffers from neo-colonialism and the impact of our colonial masters. But as Dr. Arikana Chihombori has made it clear, we cannot move forward if we don't understand where the trap was set. And now that we know, it is time to unite, it is time to educate, and it's time to liberate every African. If her message actually resonates with you, then it is high time you share this video wide with every African, because we need every African to know that it is time to unite. Africa is rising, and we will not be divided again. Thank you for watching up to the end. Africa is Marwa. You truly know that Africa is ours. Let's get going. Bye for now. See you in our next video.